Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Rick Knabb, live from the Weather Channel to update you on what is currently Tropical Storm Helene, but which is forecast to rapidly intensify to a hurricane by tomorrow and a major hurricane by Thursday and come ashore Thursday night, perhaps at that major hurricane intensity in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Portions of Florida will be getting wind and water impacts at the coast and inland. Now, it hasn't strengthened a lot during the day today. That's not a surprise because it's still in the process of organizing its inner core. But it won't be long before the thunderstorm activity that's already been increasing and filling in near the center gets concentrated enough that it'll have an inner core that will probably lead to a period of rapid intensification from tonight through Thursday afternoon, especially tomorrow night is when it has the greatest chance to do the most intensification. Now, because of its meandering around and wandering to the west a little bit more, that has increased the chances of hurricane conditions in places like Cancun that is now under a hurricane warning, as the system will be getting very near hurricane strength as it is passing very close to the northeastern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. But then, as we go through tomorrow and tomorrow night and Thursday morning, it will continue to rapidly intensify, and by Thursday afternoon, it could reach major hurricane strength. So, tropical storm today, hurricane forecast by this time tomorrow, and a major hurricane by Thursday afternoon. And it could hold on to that intensity all the way to landfall in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico, in the Big Bend or eastern panhandle of Florida. However, it is important to emphasize three major things that I want you to remember about the forecast for Helene. Number one, this is going to be a system that we can't, from this point, pinpoint exactly where the center is going to go. So it may or may not go right down the middle of the cone. The east side of the cone could have the strongest impacts from a major hurricane direct impact. Or it could go down the left side of the cone and have the more direct impacts from a major hurricane on the left side of the cone, or anywhere in between. That's question number one, is where exactly will get the full brunt of the strongest of the hurricane. The second thing is this will be a large system and impacts will be felt way outside the cone, especially to the east. And number three, it will be a fast-moving system that will bring strong winds way inland after landfall. Look at how early Friday morning, it's still nearly a hurricane inland over southern Georgia. So it might not go down the middle of the cone. It will have impacts way outside the cone, and it will be a fast mover bringing impacts way inland. So let's go through the details of all of that. The possible track scenarios from the European model for where the center could go have shifted a little bit to the west, lessening the chances of a direct impact from a major hurricane in the Tampa Bay area, but increasing the chances of direct impacts from the worst of the hurricane farther to the west, places like Apalachicola, Tallahassee, Thomasville, Georgia. That your chances for stronger wind impacts have definitely gone up as the models have shifted a little bit to the west, in part because of the meandering it's been doing down in the Western Caribbean. Now, when will the winds arrive? We have to be evacuated in our safe spot, I would say, by the time we go to bed Wednesday night, because Thursday morning is when the winds of tropical storm force start arriving on the mainland, although they could arrive tomorrow night in places like Key West. And then midday, early afternoon, those winds could arrive in the Big Bend area, eastern Florida panhandle. So you're not going to have much time Thursday morning to do final preparations. The more you can get done tomorrow and go to bed tomorrow night in your safe place, the better off you're going to be. Now, because of that slight shift to the west of the models and the track forecast, and because now we're closer in time, now only about 36 hours before winds of tropical storm force start arriving late tomorrow night or Thursday morning, the watches have gone to warning. So we now have a hurricane warning from just north of the Tampa area, and then all the way around, including some inland areas, to Tallahassee, Apalachicola, St. George Island, all the way over to Mexico Beach. That whole area is under hurricane warning. And look at where there's now a hurricane watch inland up into southern Georgia, in the Valdosta and Thomasville areas, and going inland in northern Florida as well. Tropical storm warnings are up not just for Key West and lower Keys and middle Keys where it had already been in effect, but Orlando, Tampa, Sarasota, down to Fort Myers, that area under a tropical storm warning. Look how far east that tropical storm warning goes. But Tampa Bay area proper is not under a hurricane warning, you're under a tropical storm warning. But look at how many of those warnings are outside the cone. That's because of how large the system is going to be, especially on its eastern side. The impacts will not just be inside the cone. So for the winds of a major hurricane or any hurricane conditions, or even for tropical storm conditions for mobile homes, we've got to stay safe and shelter from the wind. So especially if you're going to get hurricane conditions, you want to cover the windows with shutters or plywood. Don't tape your windows. That's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and it doesn't stop the windows from breaking. It just causes them to break into larger, deadlier pieces. So don't do that. During the full brunt of the hurricane, shelter like you would for a tornado. Do not stay in a mobile home. You need to evacuate mobile homes if you're going to be experiencing hurricane or even tropical storm conditions. Upper floors of a high-rise will have a category stronger on the winds. Just leave any unsafe structure. Now, the storm surge watches have gone to storm surge warning here as of 5 p.m. Eastern Time, all the way up and down the west coast of the Florida Peninsula, and for the Big Bend area all the way over to the Apalachicola area. And that includes Tampa Bay. It includes Charlotte Harbor. So this is not just a Gulf front problem. So yes, Tampa Bay, tropical storm warning and storm surge warning. It doesn't take hurricane force winds in that zone to cause life-threatening storm surge. So for evacuation, if local officials tell you to go, you got to go, and there are some impediments to evacuation you might be trying to overcome, you only need to plan to go a few miles. You don't need to go hundreds of miles. We got to get everyone out. Some people refuse to evacuate, but some people can't evacuate. And when they need evacuation assistance, whether it's by calling local officials and getting help, or you going to get a friend or family member who's vulnerable out. We got to get people out of that storm surge that'll be locally very life-threatening. And you can be someone's inland evacuation destination, including to accommodate their pets. So let's work it out together and get people out of those storm surge zones. And then the other water problem is going to be very heavy rain, and it actually starts tomorrow and tomorrow night before the hurricane itself comes ashore as a frontal system comes down. But this sets the table for additional rainfall to cause additional flooding once the hurricane comes ashore on Thursday, and then into Thursday night and Friday morning. It will not just be a rain-induced flood problem near where the hurricane comes ashore, it will expand pretty far inland, and then the system will weaken inland but still bring inland areas some flooding rainfall potential. So this is not just going to be a coastal event, it's going to be an inland event. It's not just going to be about wind, it's going to be about water. And we have the rest of today and tonight, tomorrow and tomorrow night, and a little bit of Thursday morning to get ready for what is expected to be major Hurricane Helene. We will take you through it all here on the Weather Channel. Stay with us.